Hi, dear student. I welcome you all to my online lectures. Today, we are going to do the poem from the Unit 2, 2.3, The Inchcape Rock, which is written by Robert Southey. Let us study something about the poet, which makes our poem more interesting. Uh, about the poet Robert Southey. Robert Southey was an English poet of the Romantic school. He was one of the Lake poets, along with William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. He was also England's poet laureate for 30 years from 1813 until his death in 1843. Dear student, you also need to remember that when we are talking about the Romantic school, it is not about something to do with love, but all these English poets who were from Romantic school of thought, they actually wrote about nature. Okay, so therefore they are called Romantic poet or Romantic thought of school. Let's move on about the poem. Students, this is a very good poem written by Robert Southey. I personally have an attachment with the poem because it was my syllabus when I was studying in school. So it's a beautiful poem. I still remember it. So that is what, I have to relate to this poem. The Inchcape Rock is a ballet. We don't call it a ballad, but a ballet written by English poet Robert Southey, published in 1802. It tells the story of a 14th century attempt by the abbot of Aberbrothock to install a warning bell on the Inchcape. It is the name of a rock, a notorious sandstone reef about 11 miles off the east coast of Scotland. The poem also tells us how the bell was removed by a pirate, so subsequently perished on the reef while returning to Scotland in a bad weather sometime later. Like many of Saudi's ballet, the Inchcape Rock describes a supernatural event, but its basic theme is that those who do bad things will ultimately be punished accordingly. Also, one thing to remember here, students, a ballet is a poem which has a short story in it. So you need to remember that. Let us begin with reading of the poem. I have taken 1 to 4 stanzas, and then in the next slide there are explanation for the fourth stanza and further on. Okay. No stir in the air, no stir in the sea. The ship was as still as she could be. Her sails from heaven received no motion. Her keel was steady in the ocean. Without either sign or sound of their shock, the waves flowed over the Inchcape Rock. So little they rose, so little they fell, they did not move the Inchcape bell. The abbot of Aberbrothock had placed that bell on the Inchcape Rock. On a buoy in a storm, it floated and swung, and over the waves its warning rung. When the rock was hid by a surge's swell, the mariners heard the warning bell, and then they knew the perilous rock and blessed the abbot of Aberbrothock. Let's get into the explanation of this, dear students. Okay, now in the first stanza, it is used by the poet to describe the situation of the sea, which was calm, without much movement, and the ship of the pirate that was also steady and motionless due to the absence of the waves in the sea and the speedy winds in the air. So when you read the first stanza, you come out to know that the poet is actually describing the climate in the sea, okay, the ambiance of the sea, what is happening there. In the second stanza, he tells us that the waves flowing over the Inchcape Rock were weak and powerless. So also to be called as feeble, they were quite weak and powerless. So much so that they failed to move the Inchcape bell. Now, dear students, you have to remember one thing. There was this rock called Inchcape Rock in the middle of the sea where Mr. Abbot of Aberbrothock, Abbot is a priest, he had put that bell. So when there is a storm in the sea, that bell would ring and it could actually, advise the sailors not to come that side so as to they would not collide with it. Okay, so he had done a noble job actually by installing the Inchcape, a bell there on the Inchcape Rock. Now, the third stanza is about the history of the bell placed on the Inchcape Rock. This is what I just told you. It tells us that the bell was placed by Abbot. Abbot is a head priest of Aberbrothock so as to warn the sailors of the presence of the Inchcape rock and prevent crashes and collision. Everybody knows, dear students, when a ship actually collides with the rock, what will happen? It will break down, the ship will break down, and it will finally submerge in the water. So just to avoid that, Mr. Abbot of Aberbrothock had placed the bell in the middle of the sea. Whenever the water level was high and the Inchcape rock was submerged underwater, the bell used to ring and warn the sailors of the danger. This way, whenever a sailor was saved due to the warning bell, he would bless the Abbot of Aberbrothock for the sense of his generosity. So you know what happens when you are saved by somebody. This is going to be the same, reaction of yours as well. Somebody saves you. What are you going to do? You are definitely going to thank him and bless him. So they did same with Mr. Abbot of Aberbrothock. They blessed him. Let's move on for further. The sun in heaven was shining gay. All things were joyful on that day. The seabirds screamed as they wheeled around, and there was joyance in their song. The buoy of the Inchcape bell was seen, a darker speck on the ocean green. Sir Ralph the rover walked his deck, and he fixed his eye on the darker speck. He felt the cheering power of spring. It made him whistle, it made him sing. His heart was mirthful to excess, but the rover's mirth was wickedness. His eye was on the Inchcape float. Quoth he, "My men, put out the boat, and row me to the Inchcape rock. I'll plague the Abbot of Aberbrothock." So this is what he said. Now let us get into the explanation of it. Okay. In the fifth stanza, the poet returns back to the present after giving us a brief history of the bell on the Inchcape rock. He now describes the present day as sunny and joyful day, when all things are pleasant, the birds are flying around happily, the whole environment is filled with joy. This is how he explains us in the fifth stanza. Uh, in the sixth stanza, he tells us the black boy, the floater, the first picture that I put on the first page, was a floater used to keep the bell afloat, was looking prominent amidst the green looking ocean. The pirate, Sir Ralph the Royer, was walking on the deck of his ship when he caught the glance of that black Inchcape boy on the bell. So what happens is that Mr. Ralph the Rover, the pirate, I hope you know who the pirate is, the one eye is closed and he's on the sea, the Pirates of the Caribbean, you can link the pirate to that. So what happens is that this pirate is walking on the deck of the ship. He's just, strolling over his ship, and then he sees that darker speck on the ocean, and he, tries to recognize what it is. And then he comes to know that it is the bell that has been placed by Abbot of Aberbrothock. So now everything was happy and gay. He was, there was excitement there. He was also happy. The climate was good. But this mirthfulness that he has, this excitement that he has, this happiness that he had, there was a wickedness in it. He was actually planning something. Now, he felt the cheerfulness of the spring season when the climate is warm and pleasant. An extreme sense of joy and excitement arose in his heart. But this joy and excitement was evil and wicked. Can you relate this to a child, who's playing, who's very happy? He is bound to commit something or the other. He's going to spill something or do something out of the excitement. You can compare this kind of behavior of Ralph the Rover to a happiness of a child. Out of excitement, they try to do a lot of things and then they fall off or they do something. But that is out of innocence. This is clearly evil. Okay, he has this idea of creating evil, doing something wrong and, hurting someone or doing something wrong. So that's what it is. Okay, now coming to the eighth stanza, he ordered his men to release the boat attached to their ship and take him to the Inchcape bell. He wanted to cause distress, sadness to Abbot of Aberbrothock. So what happened is that Mr. Ralph the Rover, he is like quite excited. There's wickedness. So out of his wickedness and evil that he's thinking, he asked the men to put a boat. Now in these big ships, there are small boats, and these are pirates. So they need these boats to, loot other ships in the ocean. So he tells them to put a boat down into the water so that he can go and create something evil, do something evil to the Inchcape bell. The boat is lowered, the boatmen row, and to the Inchcape rock they go. Sir Ralph bent over from the boat and he cut the bell from the Inchcape float. Down sung the bell with a gurgling sound. The bubbles rose and burst around. Quoth Sir Ralph, the next who comes to the rock won't bless the abbot of Aberbrothock. Sir Ralph the rover sailed away. He scoured the seas for many a day, and now grown rich with plundered store, he steers his course for Scotland's shore. So thick a haze overspread the sky, they cannot see the sun on high. The wind had blown a gale all day, at evening it had died away. So now, students, you can make, I've made the screen black so you can understand the evil of the what the rover has done. His men hopped into the boat with him and set for the Inchcape bell. When they reached, the pirate bent over from the boat and cut the rope tied to the bell. Oh, what he did. So he actually went to the rock and cut that bell. The bell which was supposed to actually, make aware people that there is a rock over here, you should not collide with it. He has cut that bell. Now, who's going to tell you that there is an Inchcape rock? So this was the evil that he was planning. The bell fell into the water. Of course, when you cut it, it is going to fall into the water. Bubbles emerged at its fell, and the pirate, having done his mischief, proclaimed happily that now that the bell is gone, and no one would thank or bless the abbot of Aberbrothock. So after cutting the bell, he's actually telling people that now nobody is going to actually bless abbot of Aberbrothock. He then sailed away and traveled for several days. He grew very rich and wealthy after having robbed and looted many ships. One day he set for the Scotland, the place of the Inchcape bell once again. So now he, after cutting the bell, he went away, and now he was in the sea, robbed and looted many ships, gained a lot of wealth, and now he's again returning to the same place where this Inchcape bell was. The atmosphere was filled with haze. The sun had set as the day was about to give in to the night. The wind had blown very furiously that day, but it settled as the night approached. So suddenly, when he came to the Scotland shore, the atmosphere has completely changed. It was filled with haze. There was some haziness around. The sun was not seen. Of course, it was the day turning into the night. The wind had blown quite furiously that day, but now it has settled down. Okay. On the dock, on the deck, the rover takes his stand. So dark as it sea, they see no land. Quoth Sir Ralph, it will be lighter soon, for there is the dawn of the rising moon. Can't hear, said one, the breakers roar. For me thinks we should be near the shore. Now where we are I cannot tell, but I wish we could hear the Inchcape bell. They hear no sound, the swell is strong. Though the wind had fallen, they drift along, till the vessel strikes with a shivering shock. Oh Christ, it is the Inchcape rock. Sir Ralph the rover tore his hair. He cursed himself in his despair. The waves rush in every side. The ship is sinking beneath the tide. So see now how the excitement has changed. Now suddenly what has happened? The ship has actually collided with the Inchcape rock. Let us take it stanza by stanza. The pirate stood on the ship deck looking around, but he could not see anything because of all dark and unclear it was. He told his men that eventually the moon would appear and they would be able to see because of the moonlight. Okay, so he was just like, relaxing and telling everyone on the board that don't worry, there's going to be the moon soon out, and then there'll be some light and we'll be able to see it because there was a lot of darkness around. A man asked anyone could hear the breakers' waves or shore waves, as he thought they were near the shore. No one could locate their ship. They wished the Inchcape bell was present to guide them and warn them about the Inchcape rock. So somebody on the deck was asking, can anybody hear? I can hear a wave. Breakers wave is the waves which hit the shore, and with that noise they can relate to it that they are near the shore. So somebody could hear that waves, but they were not sure whether it was Scotland shore or whatever it is. But they knew that somewhere near here is the Inchcape rock, which we are about to hit, or maybe we can get hit with. So they wish that the bell was there now to ring about and to inform them where they are. The ocean level was high, they couldn't hear anything, and their boat was drifted along due to the wind. Suddenly, they were shaken by a very strong shock, and they realized that they had collided with the Inchcape rock. So, suddenly, things have changed here, and what they were actually assuming has actually happened to them. So, they were assuming that they are near the rock, and suddenly, that rock hit the ship. Sir Ralph the rover felt disappointed and scratched his head as an expression of agony, pain, and suffering. So he had pain now, suffering there. Why? Because of course he can see his death near. He's going to submerge in water and he's going to die. So he is filled with pain and suffering. He was despaired. He has lost hope. uh, as the boat started to sink due to the water rushing in through the cracks and the fracture. So this is going to happen. Let us take to the 17th stanza, the last stanza of the poem. But even in his dying fear, one dreadful sound could the rover hear, a sound as if with the Inchcape bell, the devil below was ringing his knell. Okay, so as the boat sank, the pirate neared his death. He could hear only one sound, and that sound was the ringing of the bell. So he could hear that bell again. This ringing was extremely similar to the Inchcape bell. He felt as if the devil below was ringing a bell signaling his death. This way, justice came down upon the pirate and he was punished. So this is what the poem was about, dear students. I hope you enjoyed the poem. Now, with the poem, we've learned some of the lessons. We shall see to it. The poet sends out a fundamental yet unique message through the poem that boosts the morale of the reader. So when you are reading, you come to, you are with the reader and you understand how it is. Things are happening, everything is happy, gay, and then suddenly it is quite a thrilling poem, you can see. It tells us that justice always prevails. Of course, when you do right, it is you are going to win. Everyone will have their deeds compensated. Whatever we do, bad or good, it is going to be compensated. If you do good, you are going to get back good. If you are going to do bad, then that is going to come back to you. That is why we must lead pious and ethical life. So this is what the writer tells you. Actually, you should lead a pious and ethical life, thinking about the other. Pious actually was the abbot of Aberbrthok. He was a very pious person, ahead of the priest. He is a pious person. So he actually was living an ethical life. He wants everybody to be saved and have a happy life. Therefore, he had placed that Inchcape bell there. We must also make sure that we commit no sin and treat everyone fairly as we would want to be treated. So whatever you are thinking for yourself, think it for the others as well. Students, the moral of the poem, okay, as you sow, you shall reap. Okay, so this is what we've been taught, from our childhood, that what we sow, we reap that thing. If you sow good, you will get back good. Okay, and if you sow bad, then definitely that's ugliness is going to come back to you. What do you want to be done to yourself? Do not do it to the others. This is one main thing, dear students. You need to learn that. If you don't want anything to be done to you, do not do it to the others also. So this is what is the moral of the poem. I hope you have understood the poem and you liked it the way I liked it. Okay. So thank you. We'll make a new video of the new lesson of the poem and meet you soon.